and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another edition of BS in the Ring. I am your host, Wine Dog.
And I am Mills.
And thank you so much for tuning back into the podcast. This week we've got a great show for you. We're going to be going over the results from Elimination Chamber, Raw and Smackdown, as well as some of the latest news to come out from the past week. As a reminder, please like, comment, and subscribe on the podcast, and remember to subscribe to the channel. Without further ado, we're going to start with Elimination Chamber, and we're going to be starting with the pre-show. The only match that was on the card was Akira Tozawa versus Buddy Murphy for the WWE Cruiserweight title, in which it was a great match. Buddy Murphy retains his title over Tozawa by hitting Murphy's Law. A couple good spots. There was a lot of stiff strikes from Tozawa, apparently. It looked like he was getting in some of the strong style. And the ending spot, in particular, I enjoyed, where I believe Murphy had gotten out of something Tozawa was doing and then reversed it into Murphy's Law. Was just a fantastic spot. Sam, did you watch that match or? No,
I watched the highlights of it, but I didn't get back in time to watch the pre-show. But yeah, like I said when we were doing our predictions, usually if the match isn't very well hyped up when it comes to the cruiserweights, don't expect a change in the belt.
No, but even still, they've been putting on great matches, and I would have to say that match deserved to be on the main card.
See, I would love 205 to have more of a presence on Raw, to be honest, or SmackDown, or both. They showed that they for sure 100% have the talent to put on great shows. I mean, great matches. So, yeah.
After this match, I believe Mark Henry comes out to do an interview where he gives props to the Cruiserweights for putting on a fantastic match. He gives his predictions for the Elimination Chamber matches. He predicted for Kofi to win and for, I believe, the Iconics to win. He was wrong on both accounts, so, he's just as good as we are. After this, there's a promo with Kevin Owens saying how he hates that he's not in the chamber because he's still rehabbing, but he's close to a return, and he predicts Finn beating Bobby. My thoughts on that are I would love to see Kevin Owens versus Finn at WrestleMania for the Intercontinental Championship. I think that would be a great match. Main card. We start off with the women's tag title match first. One thing that really bugs me from the match is how at the beginning of all these stipulation matches, they assume no one knows the rules, even though we've seen these matches 700 times, and they keep explaining the matches. So the Boston Hug Connection and Fire and Desire start the match, and in this instance, as Corey Graves points out, is only the second time that tag titles, not women's tag titles, but tag titles in general, have been on the line in the chamber. And the first was in the men's chamber in 2015. And I remember that match, and that was a great match. I think the New Day won that one. I'm not entirely sure. It's been a while since I watched it, but it was a great match nonetheless. Bayley and Mandy Rose are going at it for a little bit. Bayley gets a neck breaker on Mandy Rose while her leg is stuck in the chamber. The Riot Squad enters at this point, and they immediately go after Sasha and Bayley. They throw Sasha into an empty pod and then attack Fire and Desire. I thought there was a really bad sequence between Morgan and Deville that seemed forced, where Morgan strikes Deville, and it's a semi-no-sell by Sonya, who then kicks Morgan. I just thought it was really bad and really forced.
It was an awkward sequence to watch. But, I mean, I'll be honest with you, I'm not a big fan of either of those people. And just every time I watch them, they are the two that are constantly kind of overdoing it, if that makes sense. They're overacting. It's not nothing about either of them.
I agree. I think in particular, Mandy Rose has greatly improved from when she first got on the main roster, but she's still not there yet. So everything sort of seems kind of forced.
I'm talking about Sonya Deville and Sarah Morgan.
Oh, okay, I got you.
No, Mandy Rose is... I'm cool with Mandy Rose, but those two...
I got you.
I'm not... Because there was a sequence on the ground where it almost like they were looking at each other, and they were just like, oh, shit, what do we do? But, you know, it is what it is.
Right. At this point, Bayley re-enters the match, and she and Fire and Desire are going at it in the corner near a turnbuckle. They get up onto the turnbuckle, which then they try to do a suplex on it. I believe that is Bayley. And then this leads to the Riot Squad coming in and getting a double suplex to both teams. At this point, the Iconics enter and they try to pin each team in the ring and argue with the ref about the count. They proceed to wreak havoc on all the teams in the ring, and one important thing to note in this match is at this point Sasha has not been seen since being thrown into the pod, as she's selling the injury from that. Bayley in the meanwhile is getting killed in the ring since she's the only member of her team moving. By this point, after a while, Sasha eventually makes it back after the Iconics try to pin Bayley. She makes the saves. Banks gets a beatdown from the Iconics, and the Iconics shove and press the Boston Hug Connection against the chains of the chamber, which, not a bad spot. They try to pin them, and it doesn't work. They proceed to go on to Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville and do the same thing. At this point, Naomi and Carmella enter and attack the Iconics and Riot Squad and Fire and Desire and everyone else in the ring, effectively doing what everyone does in the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. At this point, Carmella has tried to climb the chamber, which does not work, and starts super kicking everyone. And I just gotta say, for all the bad that Carmella is in the ring and on a promo, because she sounds like a screaming banshee sometimes, she has one hell of a super kick.
I like it.
Sonya Deville spears Sarah Logan, and my goodness, that was just a fantastic spear. Like, that looked like it hurt. And after that point, Naomi and Mandy Rose go at it, renewing their rivalry from a month ago or something like that. At this point, the first elimination of the chamber is made in the form of Carmella and Naomi getting pinned by the Iconics.
That was a hell of a sequence.
Oh, absolutely. You had both of them on top of, I believe it was Naomi.
Yeah, it was Naomi.
And they get the pin on that, and they're just celebrating and bragging right after. In the meanwhile, you have all these teams closing in on them, not realizing that y'all should be looking out for Tamina and Nia Jax, who at this point enter the match.
Mm-hmm.
Tamina and Nia at this point start doing their shtick by cleaning house and going after the Iconics, who are hiding in their pod. This as after, of course, they clean the house with everyone in the ring.
It gave me Jurassic Park vibes.
Yeah, I heard that same thing, where they're hiding in the pod at, like, scared little children, and you have just a whole bunch of these angry Tyrannosaurus Rexes going after them. At this point, they force the doors open, even though, there's not really much to force. They're just being held closed by the Iconics. And Nia and Tamina grab them from out of the pods and just start slinging them like rag dolls against the chain. And
that might be my favorite sequence from that match. To be honest, I loved it.
See, that wasn't mine, but I did like it.
I loved it. I think, was that the end of them? That should have just been the end.
Yeah, that was the end of them. After that, they deliver double Samoan drops to the Iconics, which eliminates them.
Yeah.
The Riot Squad, Fire and Desire, start breaking down the Samoans, and Sasha and Bayley take down Fire and Desire to start in on Tamina and Nia Jax. and then the Riot Squad, all of which they're attempting pins on each of these Tims. None of them are good. Sasha and Bayley get Rose and Deville in one of the corners, and Sasha delivers just a nasty double knee to them for a pin attempt that was, again, no good. The Riot Squad take a dive from the top of one of the pods to get pins, which are no good. Nia drops Morgan from one of the second ropes, and Tamina delivers a Superfly Splash from the top rope, which eliminates the Riot Squad. The final 3 teams in the match are Fire and Desire, the Samoans, and the Boss and Hug Connection. At this point, they're all going at it in the ring, and Nia and, I believe, Sasha or Bayley are on the outside of...
Sasha.
Yeah, it was Sasha on the outside. And Nia starts running towards Sasha to just decimate her. Sasha steps out of the way, and Nia runs into one of the pods, absolutely destroying it. And then all of a sudden, you see this look of concern and fear on Tamina. No, it was Bayley sidestepping it, not Sasha.
Oops.
Either way, Tamina is concerned, and both teams in the ring start in on Tamina. In the end, it results in both teams covering Tamina and eliminating the Samoans from the match. Your final 2 teams in this match end up being Fire and Desire and Boston Hug Connection, which were the teams that start the match. Which, by the way, I loved that. I love that there was that continuity and that they didn't go with the obvious, let's go with the Samoans being unstoppable. I thought that was a great storytelling by the end of the match. This wouldn't go much longer after this. Mandy runs into a knee. Sonya tries to roll Sasha up, and Bayley tries to pin after a backstabber to Deville, which is broken up by Mandy. Mandy tries to climb the chamber to the top of a pod, and Bayley and Sasha follow her, which leads to Sonya following them, and they're all sort of fighting around the pod. And Sonya gets taken down. Bayley gets knocked from the top. Deville drives Bayley into one of the pod supports, which absolutely destroys her, and she's pretty much out for the rest of the match, which is fine because it wouldn't go for another minute or 2. Sasha checks in at this point and gets beaten by Mandy for a close 2 count. Sonya accidentally spears Mandy after Sasha dives from the match, or from the move, and then which leads to Sasha Banks applying the bank statement to Sonya, not getting it fully the first time, then re-getting it and leading to the tap. Your new women's tag team champions are the Boston Hug Connection.
The first,
that's right.
Solid match for...
Very solid match. I didn't think I would enjoy it. I wasn't for most of the match, but once it started the second half of the match, it was picking up.
I personally, I liked it a lot, but it is what it is.
That is true. I think for a first match, this was the right move for them to have it in an Elimination Chamber match, because I like things when you're trying to establish a champion that have eliminations to it, because it gives it more that sort of sense of an urgency, and it gives it a little bit more importance to it.
Yeah.
From here, we move to the second match on the card, which is Miz and Shane, or the best team in the world, who are the champions at this point, versus the Usos. One thing to note is this match, I was for sure going into this match, they were not going to put the titles on the Usos just because of the stupid crap that Jimmy and Naomi got into. And for those of you who don't know, Jimmy and Naomi were driving the wrong way down a Detroit street, and they got pulled over by a cop. The vehicle smelled of alcohol, and they were pretty sure that Naomi was drunk. I guess the cop asked Naomi to get out of the car. Jimmy gets out and tries to attack the police officer, and Jimmy gets arrested for disorderly conduct and obstruction, I believe. So I was very surprised that they did what they did. To start the match, before anything gets going, Miz is out, cutting a promo, and he brings out Maurice, which was surprising because I was like, okay, well, maybe they're going to have Maurice at ringside for this. But no. Miz announces that him and Maurice are announcing a second child. Congrats to them. I don't really care. I mean, I really don't. It's good for them, but I didn't need to see that on a Elimination Chamber show. They could have done that, saved it for SmackDown, but more power to them. The Usos come out after Miz and Shane, and they get a huge pop. Not much happened in this match. There was a lot of typical tag team action in this. It wasn't anything special. If anything, the couple spots that were big were Shane goes for coast to coast, as he usually does, except the second one, he gets caught and super kicked by Jay and splashed, leading to a pin attempt that gets saved by The Miz. Shane tags Miz, starts an offense on Jay, leading to a Samoan drop on The Miz, which leads to nothing. And then Miz goes for a DDT on Jay, which leads to a 2 count. Miz starts tearing, once they're out of the ring, of course, Miz starts tearing down the announce desk to put one of them through it. Jimmy takes Jay out, and Miz takes out Jimmy. The crowd is chanting for tables at this point. At this point, Shane is on one of the turnbuckles looking to leap and take the leap of faith, which he does successfully onto Jay Uso. Jimmy and Miz are inside the ring. There's a series of roll-ups and an attempted skull-crushing finale, which does not work, which leads to a super kick and a splash attempt, which Miz gets his knees up for, and a leading to another skull-crushing finale for a close pin attempt. By this point, because Miz can't get Jimmy over fast enough, he gets a close count, but it gets reversed into a roll-up, which win the titles. The Usos are your winners. After the match, Miz apologizes to Shane, and he's irate. I thought this match was alright. I was expecting a little bit better of a match, but for what we got, I can't say it was surprising.
So, I think for the match in general, my thoughts on it, it was a solid match. I enjoyed watching it. The last sequence that ended the match, I thought went very nicely, especially with obviously with the skull crushing finale. You can do a lot with that move.
I enjoyed those the attempt and then the getting it and then leading to a roll up. To me, that sort of made sense. But even still, there wasn't really much from this match that happened to Miz, I would say, that would have led me to believe that he would have had trouble. I think it was Jimmy playing possum and like selling that he was just dead weight that sort of is what couldn't get Miz to get him over and quick enough. From here, we move on to Paige plugging her movie again, not that important. And then that leads to the IC title handicap match, which is Bobby Lashley, the former champion, and Lio Rush versus Finn Balor. I was extremely disappointed by this match. Not because of the result. I love that Finn win. It's about time he got a title. But firstly, it made no sense for Lashley to come out first and Finn not to come out in pain. I know they didn't build that up, but if that's what you're going to do on a pay-per-view and have the champion come out first and not the challenger, I'm expecting the demon. Secondly, the match was too short. I think it maybe went 5-10 minutes. It was really Lashley getting his offense in, Finn reversing it, then Lashley getting some more offense in, a forced tag by Lio Rush, Finn destroying Lio Rush and taking them both out outside of the ring, and then Finn does his closing little segment and gets a coup de grace on Lio Rush. After the match, Bobby Lashley turns on Lio Rush, which wouldn't matter the following night. I don't know. I expected more from this match.
I just think they wanted the belt on Balor. Get
I
in there,
agree.
get the belt on him, get the fuck out. I think it's pretty obvious that Bobby Lashley isn't the most exciting guy, and so
I think they're also trying to preserve some of Bobby Lashley's sort of big man, you can't beat me type of thing, which makes no sense because we all know that if they're trying to build him towards Lesnar, no one's going to believe that he can beat Brock Lesnar.
If you want to beat Brock Lesnar, you have to win, and WWE is not really giving him any dubs. He hasn't given. The only thing about Bobby Lashley that tells me he can beat Brock Lesnar is that I being an MMA fan and watching people fight, he's the only person in WWE that can probably fight Brock Lesnar.
And even still, I would still take Brock over Lashley.
Yeah.
From here, we move on to possibly the most disappointing match of the night, which went 2 minutes in Ruby Riott versus Ronda Rousey. This ends with Ruby tapping to Ronda, as we all expected, but it was maybe like a 2-minute match. Post-match, there's a confrontation between Charlotte and Ronda that leads to Becky coming out on crutches because she aggravated it the night prior from a live show, trying to attack Charlotte, and Charlotte attacking her leg. She's still suspended at this point, so it really doesn't make any sense for her to show up at this point. I didn't think she should show up until maybe next week, but when does that ever make sense? It was brutal. The beating that she gave to Charlotte and Ronda with the crutches. She moves in on Charlotte, beats Charlotte with the crutches, and tosses one to Ronda. And as they close in on Charlotte, she starts beating Ronda with the crutch, which leads to Ronda being busted open and Becky being taken out in cuffs.
So with this match, I pretty much knew when Ronda came out as the character from Mortal Kombat that she's playing or voice acting, or something like that. I had a feeling that this match was not going to go for very long. One, because the outfit didn't really look like it would last a full-blown match. And also, to be honest with you, they have not hyped Ruby Riott up at all to beat Ronda Rousey. To beat Ronda Rousey, I think if we had any, what would have made me convinced that this wasn't just a Ronda tune-up match, we would have seen a lot more from the Riott Squad. Even though I know they were just in the chamber, for sure, we could have seen a lot more of the Riott Squad in this match. But no, all we got was Ronda Rousey beating the shit out of Ruby Riott, which, I expected. I mean, I'm not disappointed in that. It's just, what's the point in even having the match on the card? And, we could have saw this on Monday night. But then again, you need Ronda Rousey to sell pay-per-views, so it is what it is.
I agree. I don't really have much to say after that. I did not care for the match at all. From here, we'll go to the no DQ match between Baron Corbin and Braun Strowman. I'm not going to spend much time on this. Corbin won after interference from Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre. I'm not even sure you could call it interference since it's no DQ and technically it was legal, but it was still stupid and a waste of time. I did not need to see this match. You could have put this on the pre-show and had the Cruiserweights fill this slot, and it would have been a much better use of time. From here, another stupid segment with Lacey Evans coming out after Ms. Shane backstage segment that gets intense. She just walks out and then walks to the back. That's it. Stupid. Waste of time. There's a plug for Fastlane in a couple weeks, and then the men's Elimination Chamber match. Daniel Bryan versus AJ Styles versus Jeff Hardy versus Samoa Joe and Kofi Kingston and Randy Orton. This was a phenomenal main event. First of all, it was great to see the title back in the spotlight as the main event for the first time since March of last year. And that came, I saw that on Twitter from Cultaholic. Daniel Bryan before the match, cuts a promo on how he does not want to be called a martyr, that he suffers for the planet, and that we need him to be champion. Blah, 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 all that same bullshit. Rowan is sent to the back, and Daniel is irate. He gets in, and it's him and Joe starting the match. And he's acting like a coward heel, running all over the chamber, trying to stay away from Joe. Once the action does start to get going, Joe chops Bryan while he's pressed against the chains, and runs a power bomb for a near count, and which leading to a chain of submissions, which was a beautiful segment right there.
Can I just say one thing? Some of those chops that Joe gave Bryan hurt me.
Oh God, yeah.
Jesus Christ. What the hell, man? But it is what it is.
After this, and Bryan targeting the knees of Joe and getting his offense going, Kofi enters the ring and starts attacking Joe and Bryan with a barrage of air offense. Bryan hangs Kofi after Bryan is able to reverse one of Kofi's moves and hang him on one of the top ropes and start viciously stomping him on the back, which gets a 2 count. There's an exchange of chops with Joe and Bryan again, which results to Daniel Bryan climbing to the top of one of the pods to stay away. Great use of the pods in the chamber in both matches, by the way. Using your surroundings as your offense or your advantage. I love that. Kofi and Joe at this point are going at it. Kofi goes to the top of the pod and attacks Bryan, and then they start to scale the chains. Joe meets them at the chains and picks off Daniel Bryan, and Kofi launches himself from the top of the chains onto both of them, and the crowd is going nuts for Kofi. Joe lays into Bryan, and leading to the entrance of AJ Styles, who immediately goes after Daniel Bryan, Kofi, and Joe. AJ starts at it with Bryan and gets a double DDT to Daniel Bryan and Kofi, which, good for him, which leads to 2 separate pin attempts and 2 counts each. Daniel Bryan is again at it, climbing the chains, while again Styles beats Joe with a forearm. From this point, as Daniel is scaling the chains, AJ leaps at Daniel Bryan with a forearm to the back of the neck or spine, which, beautiful spot right there. And he attempts a Styles Clash to Kofi once he gets back in the ring. However, Joe catches Kofi with a clutch after AJ is not able to get the pin and the move on him. And Kofi shifts this to a roll-up, which Joe gets out of and cinches the Coquina clutch back in, which Kofi gets out of and leads to a phenomenal forearm by Styles to Joe, who is the first elimination of the chamber.
That shocked me.
Yeah, I thought it would have been saved for Jeff Hardy. I am a little disappointed that it was Joe. I think they've vastly misused him, but I don't know what else.
Joe's going to get his time. I know he is.
I hope so. At this point, Hardy enters and goes after AJ, renewing their, rivalry from TNA, the Fortune, and immortal rivalry that they had a while back. Hardy Swanton bombs Styles off the top of the rope and then goes for a knee to the face and then he receives, I should say, a knee to the face by Daniel Bryan, eliminating Jeff Hardy. He was in there for a little longer than what we have just read, but that was the huge spot. At this point, Kofi, AJ, and Daniel Bryan are in the ring, and Orton is still in his pod. Daniel Bryan goes after AJ, and Daniel Bryan is also going after Kofi on the top rope, while he has AJ Styles hanging from the turnbuckle. Styles is able to deliver a massive German suplex to Kofi and Daniel Bryan, I believe, while he's still tied up, and while everyone's down, in comes the Viper. As Orton arrives, Daniel Bryan tries to go for a crucifix pin on Randy Orton, which does not work. Kofi stuns Randy momentarily and goes after AJ. AJ is able to get control of Kofi and launches him into the corner. He goes for a forearm on Kofi, but ends up getting RKO'd by Randy, who is just waiting there like a vicious predator. AJ Styles is eliminated. Kofi then goes after Randy and tries to go for a Trouble in Paradise, which misses wildly. He goes to the top rope, and Randy is able to catch him and delivers one of his signature DDTs. Kofi, however, is able to come back and eliminate Randy via a Trouble in Paradise, which that is still one of the nicest looking moves I've ever seen. Kofi is in it with Daniel Bryan at this point. It's them at the final two. Massive, massive chance for Kofi.
One thing we didn't hit on was Hardy's elimination.
What else did you want to say about Hardy's elimination?
Jesus, the transition from the Swanton into the Daniel Bryan just absolutely starching him was one of my favorite parts of the entire match. I just wanted to throw that out there because you have Hardy getting up. Obviously he hits his spot on AJ Styles. I was not expecting Daniel Bryan to be there waiting. I just thought they were going to be down for a while. Now, I knew there wasn't going to be a pin out of it just based off of where Styles landed. But anyway, back to Kofi and Bryan.
At this point, it's Kofi and Daniel Bryan, and they do a exchange of kicks with Kofi extremely fired up. He goes for a Trouble in Paradise and misses. Daniel Bryan kicks his left leg, and the no kicks ensue. He misses the final no kick, and which leads to Kofi hitting an SOS, receiving a 2 count. At this point, Kofi launches himself into the turnbuckle face first. Daniel Bryan launches kicks to the face repeatedly, which just look brutal. Kofi is able to reverse one of them and is able to jump from one of the ropes onto a leaping stomp that receives a 2 count. Kofi goes to the corner. Daniel Bryan is outside the ropes. Daniel Bryan gets smashed up against the change, and Kofi, while he's trying to go for a bulldog, gets sent into a pod by Bryan. Daniel Bryan sets up for a knee to the face and connects, but he only receives a 2 count as Kofi kicks out. Bryan is in absolute disbelief and shock. Bryan is the first one up after the sequence and stomps Kofi in the face again, receiving another 2 count. There's a knee to the face that gets countered by an SOS that leads to Bryan being able to get in a label lock, Kofi breaking the hold, which was interesting because I thought in these type of matches there were no rope breaks.
And there was even a point in the women's Elimination Chamber where there was a rope break, but they didn't call it.
So that's a little bit of a consistency.
That was one thing. I was like, what? No. But I am glad, obviously, that mistake was made, which led to even more.
Yeah.
What led to the match continuing.
After the break, Bryan goes to the top rope, and Kofi kicks Bryan while he's on the top. Bryan tries to climb to the top of a pod, which Kofi follows, uses the chamber as a weapon by getting Kofi smashed into a pod by Daniel Bryan after he attempts a suplex. He will attempt another suplex, which Kofi will counter. Daniel Bryan will get kicked off the pod. Kofi launches from the top of the pod and misses. Daniel Bryan will hit his knee to the face and retain. Can I just say what a fucking showing by Kofi Kingston this was? I really thought he was going to win.
There for a second, I was like, there was no way that Kofi Kingston is losing. But at the same time, people are acting shocked that Kofi Kingston can do this. Kofi Kingston's been at this for a long time, and every time they've taken the chains off of Kofi, he has showed up.
A lot of people forget the 2009 rivalry that Kofi had with Randy for the world title.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of his career highlights.
Rest
those
in
were
peace,
great
that NASCAR
matches,
that he destroyed.
After the match, Xavier and Big E come into the chamber to comfort Kofi and help him up. Kofi Chance and New Day close out the show.
Perfect. I thought it was perfect.
I couldn't agree more. I was kind of expecting them to turn on him just because that was going in the back of my head every time something extended like that happens. But I'm glad they didn't. That was just great. Moving on to the next night, you have Raw. It was announced earlier in the day 2 things. First, that the first entrance into the Hall of Fame were going to be D-Generation X, including Shawn Michaels, Triple H, Badass Billy Gunn, the Road Dogg Jesse James, X-Pac, and finally, the 9th wonder of the world,
China.
All I could say is it's absolutely well-deserved by everyone. DX was a huge part of my childhood growing up. Even without China, she finally deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. I think she should get her own induction next year.
Yeah.
But this is well-deserved.
Yeah.
Anyway, Triple H comes out to start the show and cuts a promo recapping last night, saying that although he corporately has to warn Becky if she does it again, she'll be arrested, he thought what she did was absolutely badass, which was interesting because I think it's going to sort of play into some Vince and Triple H tension. He then announces DX's induction, and the second announcement that came earlier in the day that there were 4 NXT talents spotted backstage, which would be confirmed by the social media accounts. Ricochet, Aleister Black, and hashtag HeelIY, which is, DIY, but I like to call them that just because they're heels now. Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa. He announces that they will be making their Raw debuts tonight, and Raw will be effectively centered around their debuts. I thought it was weird because the city was dead throughout the night, and I hated that, but good for them. There's a table match with Corbin versus Strowman. Why? Especially after the previous night. Braun power slams Corbin through the table for the win. Not really much to say there. After the match, DIY versus Revival is announced, which I thought was a huge mistake. Why would you give away a match of that caliber for free on TV in a city like Lafayette?
Also, because of the conclusion of the match, why would you put the belts on Revival and then have them lose the very next week?
I agree, but I also disagree with that. And we'll get to that because I think could have been a better way of booking that with a double DQ where neither team wins. But
I just don't agree with the losing.
No, I don't agree with it either, especially now that they're the champs.
Yeah, don't put the belt on someone and have them lose unless it's Sasha Banks.
After this segment, Heyman comes out, and as Braun is walking back, he chokes Heyman. As he's trying to speak, he can barely get words out, and they cut to commercial. Coming back from commercial, Heyman says he's not surprised at Braun's actions because everyone should be threatened by Brock Lesnar's dominance, not only in WWE and MMA. Quick note on his MMA stint, if he was so dominant, then why the hell did he get his ass kicked by Cain Velasquez and Alistair Overeem? I'm sorry, you can't address his MMA past without bringing that up because he had those 2 really bad matches. I understand he was injured at that point, but even still, he shouldn't have been competing at that point. They air a package on Brock, and Heyman says there's not enough fire in Seth Rollins to take Brock out. It looks like Heyman is about to say something else. However, he gets interrupted by Finn Balor, who comes out. I believe they cut to a commercial again and then return. Finn's in ring saying he is happy to hold the title and continue the legacy of the title. We are too, Finn.
Yeah.
It finally feels a little important.
I'm not.
Really?
Because it shouldn't be that title. I don't care until the day I die. I will say when Finn came back, He should have gotten the title straight away. Came back, fought for the title. He's only fought for the title once or twice. Well, once for sure. Sorry, my memory is trash right now.
He fought for it twice. He fought for it 3 times, actually. He fought for it against Seth Rollins, where he won. When Roman won it against Brock last year, he immediately gave Finn his match.
Yeah.
And then against Brock.
Yeah, so besides him winning it and the match against Brock, and obviously I forgot about the Roman match, which was actually a pretty solid match, to be honest.
It was.
But you know, he should
have gotten the title back.
Yeah, he should have had the title.
I don't disagree, but it would have been hard at that point. Finn is continuing his talk, how he's proud and happy to hold the title. He's going to continue its tradition. And then Lio Rush comes out. He says Finn doesn't deserve the title, Bobby Lashley does. And at that point, while Finn is paying attention to Lio Rush, Lashley comes from behind and attacks Finn. Rush comes into the ring and starts attacking him, which makes no sense considering the ending of the match the prior night, but when does WWE booking ever make sense? Ricochet comes out for the save at this point, which leads to Finn Balor and Ricochet versus Bobby Lashley and Lio Rush. The crowd was terrible during the match. There was no pop for Ricochet when he came out to save Finn. There was no energy during the match. They just seemed like they were there, which really took away from the match. It wasn't a bad tag team match. It was another tag team match, I suppose, but it really annoyed me. Ricochet pins Rush for the win.
Oh, I was going to say, I think the reason why it was down for this match is obviously I think everyone's tired of Lashley and Rush.
Yeah.
I'm not tired of Rush, but I'm tired of Lashley.
I had seen earlier today from Ringside News or one of those dirt sheets that the original plans for the match with Finn were to be Ricochet versus Lio Rush. Or Ricochet versus Finn Balor, I should say. But Triple H was able to intervene with Vince and say, let's not do that. We don't want Ricochet losing.
But we also don't want Finn losing.
And we also don't want Finn losing after he got the title. I think they still could have done the match.
Have Bobby Lashley
come out and go for a disqualification ending.
Yeah. That would have been Spot Central.
Absolutely.
Those two need to go. WrestleMania. Rush.
I think they might build that. I think that could be a WrestleMania match, and that would be good.
Match.
At this point, you go to a throwaway match, Lucha House Party tag team match against Team Loser of Hawkins and Ryder. Lucha wins.
I want Team Loser to be the edgeheads again and dominate.
But it won't. Tucker and Otis come out for an interview, and it's boring, which results in Lacey Evans once again coming out and walking out, watching as Tucker and Otis do a strut after she does one, and then this stupid segments and waste of time. Next, we get I would say the best match of the night with DIY versus Revival. I don't have a lot of notes on this.
The only thing
other than that, both teams looked extremely good. Yeah. And I think the crowd was actually in this match for a little bit.
Yep.
This is an unpopular opinion, but I do not like them debuting in this match. Yeah. Because it should have been saved for a bigger time, like I said earlier.
Yeah, the only issue with this for me was booking. The only issue.
Johnny and Ciampa in ring as a team, for all the feuding they did in the past year, appeared like they never missed a beat, and it was beautiful, especially working with the Revival. That was such a fantastic tag team match, and it got wasted on Lafayette, Louisiana. I'm so sorry to both those teams because they deserve so much better. Banks and Bayley are out after this match, and they're doing a interview, or they're giving a promo segment. The crowd is dead for Sasha Banks and Bayley. That's how bad this crowd was. I could get the NXT call-ups being dead because some of them may not know them, but everyone knows Sasha Banks and Bayley. And you're going to be dead for them after they just put on a great match the night before and are your first women's tag team titles? Get the fuck out of here. They set up for the Samoans versus Boston Hug, I believe, at Fastlane, if not WrestleMania. I don't think that'll be the case. I think it'll be a one-off at Fastlane. But that was that.
I feel like they'll probably have something at WrestleMania for.
I think they have something lined up for them.
Well,
I don't
not
know what,
them, but for the Samoans. I'm not calling the Samoans, but I think like they'll probably have a battle royal and Nia Jax will win or something like that. Just because I think they're gonna get her away from Tamina. Just because, I mean, I'm sorry, Tamina is very boring.
Tamina is trash.
She's boring. She's very, very boring.
Yep. From here, we move on to a very quick squash match featuring Drew McIntyre and Dean Ambrose, which was set up earlier in the show. Drew McIntyre trying to get a match with Seth Rollins out of Triple H. Ambrose coming in saying he's got nothing to do, slapping McIntyre, leading to this match. 2 Claymores pin Dean Ambrose. Just don't use Dean Ambrose. Please, for the love of God, don't use him. If he truly is leaving and you're doing this as punishment to him, just don't use him. What a shame. They air a second part of the Brock Lesnar package. It goes over everyone he's beaten both in WWE and MMA and on his way to the title. Pretty simple there. It was boring. Elias comes out and does his shtick. Says he's fed up with the way he's been treated. So are we. And that he's the best and most charismatic star in a while. I don't disagree. He's constantly disrespected and interrupted, and that we should be blessed by his presence. Then out comes the Dutch Destroyer, Aleister Black, to again, no pop. Elias versus Black. It's a very good match for TV at least. Elias gets some offense to start, but Black is able to get control and get some reaction out of the crowd. Come back from commercial. Elias is in control and putting in a good effort. Black is able to fight his way back into it with some really stiff strikes and elbows. He hits a great second rope moonsault for a 2 count and then a stiff back elbow, which that sounded like it hurt. Elias is able to get a jumping knee in for a 2 count, and then Black hits the Black Mass for the win. Aleister Black is going to be a massive megastar.
I think he'll be the one that drags the Demon back out of Finn.
I'd love to see that match.
I'd love to see those two.
For the IC title. That would be great.
Universal title.
That too. That too. No, I don't disagree. Rousey vs. Riot was the main event, and this was a much better match than the previous one, but I ask, why wasn't this the match they had at Chamber? It still ended with the same result. Ronda wins, takes out the Riot Squad to end Raw.
I think this is pretty much the cap on the Riot Squad for now.
Yeah, I don't think they should be seen until after WrestleMania. I agree. SmackDown Live. Shane opens the show, and they air a package on Kofi's performance from Chamber, which was fantastically done, like most of their video packages. He announces that the NXT talent from Raw last night will be on SmackDown Live tonight, and then Miz comes out to apologize. He thanked Shane for the moment that he received from his father, since he has never gotten his father to say that he's proud of him. He says that he knows the rematch clauses are gone, but if anyone can make a match for the titles again, it's Shane. The Usos come out and say they'll give them a rematch, but they don't want to take it, or Shane doesn't want to take it, because The Miz is a loser, a failure, a wannabe, and a crybaby. They tell him if he wants a rematch, get another partner. This pisses Shane off, who makes the rematch for Fastlane in Cleveland. This is a perfect opening, I feel, for SmackDown. It was short, it was to the point, and it's set up for Fastlane. Next, we get Aleister Black coming out to a much better pop than the previous night.
His entrance is so
awesome.
badass.
I love the music.
Badass.
I love the atmosphere. It's just great. One interesting note while Black is making his entrance is that he still has the NXT nameplate. And I think it's setting up for an invasion angle, especially with some of the stuff that they planted the night before with Triple H, and I think that'd be great.
Dude, I'm sorry. Most of the people in NXT right now, I'm sorry, I am way more excited about than anybody
Absolutely.
in WWE.
I agree. He has a match against Andrade Cien Almas, who comes out with Zelina Vega, which was interesting because if you're in the know, then you understand that Aleister Black and Zelina Vega are married. And I had two thoughts going. One being, well, why is she coming out in... I understand that she's the business manager, but wouldn't WWE be sort of smart enough to have Andrade come out at least without her for one match?
I don't think WWE cares.
I don't think they do either. Because...
I mean,
she maintained professionalism throughout the match and remained in character, which was great. I loved it.
Yeah.
But the other thought I had running through my head, and this was a joke, so please take it as one, was if she gets involved in the match trying to help Andrade win, physically, of course, and Black takes her out, does that count as DV?
No. Jesus.
Like I said, it was a bad joke. This was a fantastic match. This was a great match to kick them off. I think it could have gone on as a main event.
Yeah.
It should have been a pay-per-view main event, because, but it didn't. Andrade takes control right out of the gate and gets in some stiff hits and a running knee. Aleister fights back and tosses Cien outside and does his leaping off the second rope to go to his, sitting position. He starts getting in some knees, grounding Cien in an arm hold. Black gets in some knee strikes and goes for a springboard off the second rope and gets tossed outside. Andrade goes for a hammerlock DDT, which gets reversed into a crucifix pin for a 2 count. Black gets in a kick and then a German suplex for a 2 count. And that was a great German suplex. Holy crap. They do a lot of great suplexes, but that's one of the prettiest I've ever seen. They are getting a couple Fight Forever chants at this point out of the crowd, which is fantastic for a SmackDown match. Cien goes for another hammerlock DDT, which ends up getting countered into a black mass for the win. Aleister Black is your winner in this match.
I loved the match. The match was great. The only thing I don't like is with Andrade having so much hype at the moment. I don't like him losing. But then again, like at the same time,
but at the same time,
they do have this history with
and it
each
sells
other.
the history that Andrade still can't beat Black.
Yeah. So maybe that leads. I would like to see Andrade get the U.S. title, and then him and Black.
The U.S. title wasn't on the show last night, so hopefully he will get it. And I think that would be a great rivalry to elevate that title.
Yeah.
At this point, we go to the back. Ciampa and Gargano are watching the TV, and they're being interviewed. They say that they are going to show that they are the future together after going to war for a year against each other. The Bar come in at this point and say, it must be take your NXT superstar to work day. They should just go back to NXT. Ciampa says they're here to take over this show, and that Johnny says they're not here to set the bar, they're here to break it. Great promo. Sets up for DIY versus the Bar later in the night. Actually, after this segment, from Hardy Styles and Kofi in the back, Kofi and the New Day are extending a pancake branch apiece beforehand so that they come to terms and are on the same team. The Bar versus DIY, again, another great match. This SmackDown was just great.
Well, SmackDown's usually the highlight of the week when it comes to wrestling.
And it had a lot of new matchups. We had, obviously, the new superstars, but you saw some people be used that haven't been used. Ciampa and Sheamus start. Ciampa gets in his offense, and a tag is made to Cesaro by Sheamus, which leads to Ciampa tagging in Johnny. After a time, the Bar gains control of DIY, and they get in offense by cutting Ciampa off from Johnny, who at this point is tagged out of the match. Sheamus goes for a second rope white noise and instead gets a sunset flip powerbomb from Ciampa, who awkwardly lands on his knee weird, and I automatically thought, crap, he's going to be out another 9 months. Thank God he was all right. Hot tags at this point are made to Cesaro and Johnny, and the crowd is in it. This leads to a slingshot DDT from Johnny to Cesaro for a 2 count. A Hurricane Rana into the Gargano escape ensues, which Cesaro is able to break out of. He is able to land 2 backbreakers, and Sheamus goes for a combo leaping off the top turnbuckle for a 2 count before Ciampa breaks the pin. An Irish Curse backbreaker is applied for a 2 count. A super kick is given to Sheamus for a 2 count. Finally, Cesaro tags in and goes after Ciampa. A tag is made to Ciampa after Johnny is driven into a corner, and they get the roll-up for the win. Hashtag Heel IY defeat the Bar. Great match there. Ricochet versus Eric Young is announced for later in the night, which, great match there too.
I love it, yep.
Afterwards, Asuka is back. After a 3 or 4 week hiatus doing nothing, she's getting interviewed and says she is ready for a new challenge and a new opponent since she beat Becky and Charlotte at TLC, and she made Becky tap out at Rumble. Great way to play that up by Asuka. She wants to know who is ready for Asuka right now. Mandy Rose comes out, says if anyone is ready for Asuka, she is. Leading to Mandy Rose versus Asuka. Not a bad match. There's a drop kick to Mandy Rose from Asuka after a flurry of offense. Once again, Lacey Evans decides to make her presence felt by coming out in the middle of the match and doing her walk into the ring, or walk into the arena and walk out. Both women look extremely confused. Sonya Deville is preventing Lacey Evans from going to the ring. Mandy is able to take advantage of the situation after Lacey leaves with a side Russian leg sweep, which results in a 1 count. Back from commercial, Asuka is able to get in a knee bar that gets broken. She then gets rocked by a knee on the outside of the ring. Asuka is able to get back in by a count of 9, and Rose starts stomping relentlessly on Asuka. Asuka gets some stiff open palm strikes and a spinning elbow on Rose for a 2 count, and a Shining Wizard also for a 2 count. A knee to Mandy Rose will have Mandy complaining about her eye playing possum, which will lead to Asuka being incensed, trying to get after Mandy Rose. Mandy Rose will take advantage of this and toss her into the rope and get a roll-up for the pin. I thought this match was great up until that point. I really did not like that finish.
It killed the momentum.
Absolutely. Mandy Rose, as a result, defeats Asuka.
See, I thought Mandy Rose was one of the highlights of the women's Elimination Chamber. So I wish
greatly improved.
I wish she could take that momentum and take it into SmackDown and get a clean one on Asuka. But it is what it is.
Yeah. Excuse me. After this, we get Ricochet versus Eric Young. There is a decent pop for Ricochet, much like with everyone else. Dane and Wolf are at ringside for Eric Young and providing a distraction for Ricochet, who gets a wicked hard blast to the ear from Eric Young, which knocks him to the ground. There is a jumping arm to the back of the neck by Young after Ricochet gets back into the ring, which leads to a 2 count. Young is in total control of this match, keeping Ricochet grounded. After Ricochet gets back into it, he's able to get in some offense, landing a great leaping uppercut, which then leads into a standing shooting star press for a 2 count. There's more back and forth that leads to the end of the match, which will be a 630 splash for the win. Ricochet defeats Eric Young, and the only thing I have to say about this match is I want to see it again. I think the two of them put on a great match, and I would love to see it again.
One thing, I know, I don't think Ricochet was ever in TNA.
No, he was not.
No, okay. But it was cool seeing Eric Young in a match that kind of reminded me of him in TNA with those high-flying, fast-paced guys.
Versus what he had been as of lately being the sort of slow, methodical type of stuff. I thought it was great. Yeah. It reminded me very much of his X Division days.
Yep.
Touching on the main event real quickly so that we can get to the news. It's a 6-man tag featuring the baby faces of the match from Chamber versus the heels of the match. Kofi has massive support and a Kofi Mania chant is going. To me, and this isn't anything that they hinted towards, but I feel like there's going to be a breakup of the New Day in the future. That's just my opinion off of some of the stuff that I see going. I could be wrong, but that's just a gut feeling I have. Bryan cuts a promo before the match, bragging about his victory and his usual garbage. He says that Fastlane challenger is going to be none of the men in the ring because he beat all of them in the Chamber. To start the match, it's Kofi and Bryan. Daniel Bryan makes a tag out to Joe immediately. Kofi tags out to Hardy. Joe to Daniel Bryan. You get a bunch of offense in the match. I don't really have much out of that because I felt it was a typical 6-man tag match. In the end, Kofi hits Trouble in Paradise on Daniel Bryan to pin him for the second time in 2 weeks. Kofi Kingston, AJ Styles, and Jeff Hardy get the win. Afterwards, Shane comes out and announces that he was so impressed by the showing that Daniel Bryan's opponent at Fastlane will be none other than Kofi Kingston, which gets a huge reaction from the crowd, and they are all pumped. And so is Kofi. He's going, it's my time now. SmackDown closes. Great episode of SmackDown. All around, there are a couple minor things here and there. Otherwise, great episode.
The My Time thing, I think that's what's going to lead to the New Day breakup.
There was, I will say, during the match, there was a point where Randy and Kofi were in the match, and they were going at it, and Kofi does a callback to their rivalry from 2009, where he's going stupid to Randy. And for those who remember, during the 2009 rivalry, Randy had hit, I believe, an RKO on Kofi and did the same thing. Mm-hmm. So I like that. I thought that was great continuity. All right, now getting into the news. There is a crap ton of it. There's just no better way of putting it. First, from Ringside News, they are reporting that Lacey Evans is set for a massive push as WWE sees her as part of being the big three, that being Becky, Charlotte, and now Ronda, to be replaced by Lacey once Ronda leaves. They reportedly see her as another Reigns of the women's division. I don't know about this yet. I think she needs to establish herself first. They tried that with Dana Brooke, and it massively backfired on them. They have tried that with Nia Jax. They've tried that with Tamina, and it just does not work when they do it. I think they need to let it develop naturally. That's the only way it can. Also, Ringside, the next couple reports are coming from Ringside News, just so you know. But Ringside News reports via Dave Meltzer that the WWE creative still does not have a working WrestleMania card just under 50 days out of WrestleMania. My question is this WrestleMania doomed to be a failure because of that?
No, I don't think so. I'm actually, because I hate having too long of a build-up, and I think, and this is the only positive for me about Fastlane, is since WrestleMania is always either, those last few days in March or early April, there is a long layoff between, the pay-per-view between Royal Rumble and Mania. So I'm okay with Fastlane being that big setup towards Mania. So no, I don't think it's doomed to be a failure. There's a lot of storylines currently playing out. That's the thing. You don't want to rush these storylines and say, okay, cool, they just did this for Mania. So I'm okay with it.
I agree you don't want to rush the storylines, but at the same time, they should still be laying the seeds for WrestleMania at this point. And the only ones that they've done that with have been with Becky and with Seth. And yes, every time we have high expectations for our pay-per-view, they fail to live up to it. And every time they're low, it exceeds. But WrestleMania is a completely different beast, in my opinion. I think you have to plan for that, just given the scale of the event and the importance of it. This is your Super Bowl. This is the reset button going forward. They have to be able to get this right, especially with All Elite Wrestling right around the corner with their show in May. They have to show their dominance. They have to show that they can pull off great booking decisions and pull off great shows. Some of the WrestleManias in the past couple of years that haven't had build-up have been crap. Then again, some of them that have had build-up have been crap. I think they need to start planting seeds as soon as next week. Otherwise, I do think it's doomed to be a failure, despite the 2 matches that everyone's looking for. Because we don't know what the card is. And this especially goes in place with a report from Wrestling Incorporated saying that because of this uncertainty surrounding the card, they don't know who is going to be Daniel Bryan's opponent. It could be Kofi, or it could be someone returning like Sami Zayn or Kevin Owens. Batista's been rumored. Cena's been rumored. I even saw The Undertaker in discussions, which is stupid because he's retired.
Batista, Triple H.
They literally don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And that's scary. The next report from Ringside News comes in the form of WWE, despite calling up 4 of the top talent from NXT, being Tommaso Ciampa, Johnny Gargano, Ricochet, and Aleister Black. They do not have any long-term plans set for them. They're reporting that not only did Triple H not know about the call-ups until the last minute due to communication errors with Vince, but that the decision was so last minute, it was made due to a multitude of reactions, including to All Elite Wrestling and the ratings. But at this moment, there are no long-term plans for the call-ups. They have nothing lined up for them. Instead, in the short term, they have them working all 3 shows, Raw, SmackDown, and NXT, much like some of the other call-ups that have been made that haven't been featured. I have a massive problem with this because this is what they do with every call-up. They did this with Dillinger. They did this with EC3. They did this with Tyler Breeze. They have done this with almost every NXT call-up aside from Finn Balor. And in the end, it does not work. Hell, I'd even say that they did that with Elias, and despite him being over, they still don't know what to do with him. Oh. They can't call these people up without a plan. Otherwise, it's useless. They're just bodies there.
I will say, if they're doing this to kind of get some positivity into the WWE after all the hype with AEW, I'm okay with them working all 3 shows if it's just them getting a feel for who should go where. Which if you want my opinion, I think Ricochet should be on Raw. Him and Balor are a good fit with each other. I think Aleister Black, in my opinion, SmackDown United States title. You can also throw him into that huge fight for the big belt.
You could do
and then Gargano and Ciampa, and
it doesn't matter where you put them.
Yeah, dude, they're gonna spice up every tag team division.
Absolutely, or even as singles.
Yeah, true. Now I don't want them as a singles right now, just because I'm scared as soon as they get to singles
that they're gonna be wasted.
Yeah,
so am I.
Just because there's so many right now. Keep them as a tag team and then split them up and have that huge rivalry on television.
Yeah.
So
I think that would be great. The next piece of news comes from Wrestling Inc. and Ty Dillinger's social media. Ty Dillinger has requested for his release from the WWE. The sparingly used superstar has requested for his release from the company as he has not been used much in his tenure. He came up and debuted in the Royal Rumble 2 years ago, has been on and off of screens. He has been oft injured. He was just recovering from a hand surgery this past these recent months, and he's been healed for a couple weeks now, but they have not used him. He has, as we said, requested his release. I wish him the best. I hate that they didn't use him as they should have, but I don't know that they ever were going to use him. The next piece of news comes from Wrestling Inc. Most of us already know that The Undertaker was announced last Thursday to be appearing and working StarCast, which is the meet and greet event that All Elite Wrestling will be having the Saturday or Friday before Double or Nothing in May. Vince is not happy about this. It doesn't matter if Vince is happy, though, because Undertaker is retired. But he's not happy. I think that might prevent The Undertaker from getting into the Hall of Fame for at least a year or two. Because Vince is petty like that.
It's a shame. It's a shame.
I love that he's doing this and that he's able to do this, because he deserves to make whatever money he's getting from this. But I think it might prevent him. The final piece of news, and this is probably the not the biggest, but the most talked about story. Corey Graves knows Mella is money. Alimony, that is. It was reported late last week, Thursday, Friday, or Saturday, one of those days, that by multiple dirt sheets and Corey Graves' wife herself on her Instagram, that she and the Savior of Misbehavior were getting divorced, and that the commentator was in a relationship, or at least in bed with Carmella. She announced that she was disappointed that one of her daughter's role models was in this role, and that she's been through hell and back with him, yada yada yada, all the sort of
typical relationship things.
Yeah. However, it was later reported this week, Sunday and Monday, by Pro Wrestling Sheet, that the estranged couple had been separated for months, and that the divorce was in the process of being finalized before this came out. His soon-to-be ex-wife, Amy Polinsky, has since deleted her Instagram post, as it had been revealed that the two superstars had only recently began their relationship after the process was all but done. I had a note in my stuff from earlier during the women's tag match on Elimination Chamber. Corey was gushing about Mandy Rose while she was making her entrance like he usually does. And my note read, Corey really shouldn't be talking during Mandy Rose's entrance after the crap that he was allegedly involved with at the moment. I thought Carmella was going to take the first pin. I'm glad I didn't report on this and we didn't say anything about it until now that we have most of the details, because it could have been really bad. We would have had to do another show effectively to retract. One other note before we end is something that bugged me from the pre-show of Elimination Chamber. And I don't know if I said it already, but Sam Roberts is an idiot. On the pre-show, he said that Ronda Rousey isn't used to one-on-one competition outside of the octagon, and that she's not ready.
The last fucking
year.
I
tweeted out, Sam Roberts on the Elimination Chamber pre-show just said, Ronda isn't used to one-on-one competition outside the octagon and will not be ready for tonight. Really, Sam? Is that the hill you want to die upon? Fine. What's the past year of matches been? A warm-up?
I
mean, seriously, this man should not be near a pre-show panel or any panel at all. He's a fucking moron. Especially after his comments, what was it? A couple weeks ago, during NXT TakeOver about Bianca Belair, how she shouldn't be near the title because it's just not her. Dude, stop talking. You don't deserve your position. You don't know what you're talking about.
We deserve your position.
Amen. With that being said, thank you so much for tuning back into the podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Next week we will be doing Raw and Smackdown and news, as there is no pay-per-view. If there's any major developments in NXT, we'll also report on that. One thing to note is, do we have our SoundCloud up?
The profile is made. I am uploading these shows Friday night. Friday night, 100%. These shows will be uploaded onto SoundCloud.
And there will be a link in the description for you if you enjoy SoundCloud more than YouTube. 2 weeks from now, there will not be a show, or at least it will be a delayed show, as we will be on spring break and not have the ability to record. But we will have something out at some point.
We're gonna obviously try to see what happens, but just don't. It's not a.
Don't count us out, but just be prepared for a week of
no bullshit.
Yeah, no bullshit. As always, thank you so much for coming to the podcast and tuning in. I've been Wine Dog.
And I've been Mills.
Have a great day.
Release the pressure. You were betrayed.